Hi guys, in this video I want to show you how to take a simple LED circuit that we had learned in STEM 1 and convert it to a circuit that we could use an Arduino to power instead of a 3-volt battery pack. And there's two ways of doing that. One, we can attach the Arduino to the circuit and then the Arduino itself to the computer using our Ethernet to USB cable. So what that would do is pull power from the computer itself to power the circuit, or we can connect a 9-volt battery with a power adapter to the Arduino, and then it would pull power from the 9-volt battery pack to power the circuit. So the first one I want to show you is powering it using the computer. So I'm going to leave our circuit alone here. I am, however, going to turn off and disconnect our 3-volt battery pack. And I'm going to set up our Arduino. When we're connecting our Arduino, we want to make sure that we are being gentle. The connections and ports on these are somewhat fragile. So I'm going to take my Ethernet connector, plug it into the Arduino, take my Chromebook, and I happen to have a Chromebook that has a micro USB connector, which means my computer needs a micro to standard USB connector. Yours won't. Yours will use regular standard USB. So I would plug this into my computer. And you can see I'll get a green and orange light on my Arduino. That tells me that my computer is running power to my Arduino. Now, in order to power my breadboard circuit, I need to be able to connect the Arduino to my LED circuit. And to do that, I'm going to need 2 male-to-male jumper cables. We of course remember that jumper cables, the color of the wire does not matter. All jumper cables are made up of the same wire, and that color helps us organize. But for purposes of organization in teaching, I want to make sure that I'm going to use a red male-to-male jumper wire for the positive portion of our breadboard and a black male-to-male jumper for the negative portion of my breadboard. If you do not have jumper wires in these colors, you can replace it with other colors. I'm going to start at my breadboard and go from my negative to on the Arduino. I need to be on the power portion of my Arduino. Right here you'll see that this portion of it's a breadboard of sorts. These are called female pin headers, and you can place male-to-male jumper wires inside of those ports. So you'll see that this right here is labeled power, analog, and digital. We'll talk about digital and analog later. Right now we need to use the power portions. On the sides, I have this upside down. On the sides of the Arduino you'll see labels. So this is our power right here, labeled in white. Get it to focus. And then we'll see VIN, GND, GND. GND stands for ground, which is an area that we can connect our negative jumper wire. You can connect it into either one of those GND ports. Now for my power, I have the option of, so I'm going to go into my positive on my breadboard. I have the option of plugging into a 5-volt connecting pin or a 3.3 volt. 5 volts are really good for motors, but for simple LED lights, 3.3 volt will suffice. So what that's doing here is it's a variable power source. It can pull either 3.3 volts of power from the computer, or it can pull 5 volts, and it'll pull whichever power source you plug into. You can actually use both 5 and 3.3 volt as 2 separate power sources for this system. So in this setup right here, all I have done is replace the 3-volt battery pack that we were using earlier with the Arduino. There's no coding going on here. The Arduino is only acting as a variable power source to power the LED circuit. I can still use the Arduino to power this, but I actually don't need this cord right here. This cord right here, the Ethernet to USB, is traditionally used to load code to the Arduino that would control the circuit, and we're not using code yet. And so if I unplug this, you'll see my lights go off. I no longer have power here, which means I also no longer have power to the circuit. And I can replace my USB to Ethernet with a 9-volt battery attached to a 9-volt battery power adapter. And now the power source that's going to be powering the Arduino and thus the circuit here is my 9-volt battery. So again, I still have the option of using either that 3.3 or that 5-volt, but instead of pulling from the computer, now the Arduino is pulling from the 9-volt battery pack. And that is how to use an Arduino as a power source.